Hello everyone, my name is Olivia once again. Hello everyone, my name is Olivia once again, and you're welcome to our second session on penetration testing and red teaming in general in cybersecurity. Very nice to see all of you on the Google Meets, and also nice to see all of you on our YouTube channel. So today we are moving on to something a little more complex or a little more different than what we did the last time. Last time we went on with exploiting a virtual machine and checking out reconnaissance as well as other things. So today now we're going to be more focused on um, web exploitation. As we're saying that, let me move on to the slides so that we get really quick and begin as soon as possible. Let me share my screen over here so we can see it on the board. Okay, try this. So for all of you on the Google Meet, are you able to see my screen right now?
Yes, you can see your screen now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, let me be able to make this as big as possible. Duplicate the slide presentation. Beautiful. All right, today we're going to be focusing on web application hacking and exploitation. With this, we'll be able to exploit and check out concepts that are useful to web exploitation. We're going to be able to create a mental model of how web application attacks work. We'll look at different types of models. We'll look at the most vulnerable classes of attacks that happen in our day-to-day systems. We'll also be able to follow a structured and repeatable testing methodology. All right, after that, we'll be able to think like an attacker, as though an attacker would, be able to do things that are happening as well as a defender, because obviously, not only are you thinking as an attacker, but also how will the defense be able to block these attacks that have been found out. And then we'll be able to validate our findings ethically in an authorized lab environment. All right, so moving on. We'll first start off with what is a web application. A web application is basically what you've seen for so many years, like what we've all been, like let me just speak about it in layman terms, the type of things that we've seen for so many years, google.com, Pinterest, oh, I want to go and check Temu, I want to check Temu, I want to see what's the latest things that they have, the offers out for me. These are web applications. But the web applications differ from other types of applications because some of them come out as systems. I'm so sorry for the distraction. So give us 1 second to resolve that. Right? Web applications come out on the web. They show up as web processes. They show up as www.http:// this is the web application. These are the type of things we see, things that we go on our web browser and go check out for. Those are web applications. We've seen a lot of examples such as browsers, right? Web services, business logics, databases and services. These are all examples of things you can find out in web applications and things you can see in general in web applications. Now, why does it matter to testers? With testers, every feature that accepts and inputs and delivers an output is important. It's something you should take note of because obviously, if I'm able to drop in a malicious code in an input state, right, and then that malicious code that I've been able to drop in gives me an output different from what I should typically be able to see as a regular user, is something to note on too. Each input is a potential entry point and an output is a potential exposure because yes, what you are giving it in is, in the sense of being, exploitative of all these type of things. You bringing in something could potentially be something wrong, something you're not supposed to. And then what is giving you out could also potentially be something you should not be able to see, or something you're not supposed to be able to see as a normal user. So that's where web application hacking comes into play to us as penetration testing learners, to us as penetration testing understanders, and even just security testing in general. Moving on. So how do web applications communicate? Because for us to be able to know how to attack them and which points are the most vulnerable to certain attacks, this is where we start to look at the communications between them. So we have our browser, our normal google.com, some people have Opera, some people have Firefox, different things. If you're using your Linux system, we're typically using Firefox, right? You have your browser, you send a request, a HTTP request. It could be a get request, a post request. Get requests are typically, you're telling the system, you're querying the system and be like, okay, get this information for me. Post request, take this information, this update, whatever information is there, take the information I'm saying and put it in place of that. Delete. Whatever information you see there, take it out of the system entirely. You understand? There are different requests that exist in HTTP requests. And the reason why I'm buttressing on it now is because we're going to see it later, a bit later when we start into our practical aspects of this class. And then we talk from the browser, it moves into the web server, which is the application that's actually being run, the application that we are practically discussing with, the application we're speaking with mostly. From here, we get HTTP responses. So you send a GET request. Okay, hey system, can you bake me an apple pie? It's like, okay, yes, I can give you an apple pie. So it makes the apple pie and it gives you a response, which is the apple pie, right? You send an information to it, it gives you back one. And that happens in the web server, in the application. And then the thing now with it is, when it's doing that, the whole process of it making that apple pie, is it going to the database or other services, cloud services, other services in general. I don't want to go too deep into that, but other services that could exist in the system, and it's going to ask those services, look, I'm trying to make an apple pie. Can I get the ingredients from you? And it's like, yes, of course you can. Here's some flour, here's some sugar, everything. Here's some apples. You join all of that together, you mix it together, come back to the web application, it gives you the apple pie. I mean, in this situation we're talking about, gives you the apple pie. From the apple pie you've gotten, you send it back to the browser, and the browser gives it to you as what you asked for, which was your request in the first place, and gives it to you as a what? A response. But in cybersecurity terms, it comes out as an HTML, a JSON, or just data in general. And same thing, similar things go towards the system. Here we give it a response, like the type of data we're trying to do. Are we trying to give it data? Are we trying to get data from it? Are we trying to update? Are we trying to delete? And just to branch out a little, there's this concept that they have in software engineering called CRUD. CRUD is very much interested in HTTP requests, right? CRUD means C-R-U-D, means create, read, update, or delete, right? So am I trying to create something new? Am I trying to read something that the system already has? And when you're saying read, you're thinking get. Am I trying to update an information that already exists, or am I trying to delete something? Of course, there are more requests than just these four, but these are the major four that you typically use as a software engineer, as a cybersecurity analyst, as a penetration tester or security tester. Beautiful. So obviously, with user-controlled inputs, they write inside the request as URLs or query parameters. They also come in as headers or cookies. They could also come in the form of a request body or the forms. And we'll see this in very much practical terms when you see what an actual HTTP request looks like and what an actual HTTP response back looks like, and also uploaded files. So moving on. Now, before we go any further, I want to stop with what I was speaking about for a bit and speak about something new. There's a framework that exists that shows us as penetration testers the major, or rather top things that are most vulnerable in systems. And those things are being categorized by OWASP. OWASP is kind of, I guess, in a sense, universal, where multinational, universal, I don't know if it's everywhere that uses it, but universal, where you're looking at the top 10 most vulnerable attacks that are being used on systems. And they go in this manner. I mean, we're going to look at it sideways this way. One of the first things I'm just going to speak about them, because later on we'll see practical methods of this. We have the first one being broken access control. This is the most vulnerable thing that we've noticed since the last time it was updated till now. Well, I mean 2025, and then soon enough they'll be able to bring out a more updated list. But OWASP Top 10 has told us that yes, a widely used awareness and training reference for the most critical web risks exist in this manner, in this order. Broken access control is one of the things that most systems are most vulnerable to. So broken access control, then we have security misconfigurations. A lot of this comes from like human error. You are the one supposed to configure a system. You're supposed to change something from what it was supposed to be, and then you kept it as this, the way it is, as it is. And we find that that happens a lot in a lot of our systems. So, broken access control. We also have supply chain failures, cryptographic failures. Your password is supposed to be encrypted and it's not being encrypted. That kind of thing. Injections. This injections is quite broad, but we have SQL injections as well as other injections. But we'll get to see maybe a few of them. Of course, you still have the avenue to go learn more things on your own. We also have insecure design here, the way your system was designed. Is this the most proper way for your system to be designed that would be less likely to be attacked? We have authentication failures. Need I explain more? Software or data integrity failures. That's another thing that is very, accessible, or rather has been more accessible in the past few years. I think the last time we had an update from OWASP was 2013, if I'm not wrong. And since 2013, I'm guessing, I'm not entirely sure, I'm trying to remember. But between that time and this time, they've noticed that during this period, these are the top 10 things that have shown and proven to be most attacked, in majority of the systems that exist. We also have security logging and alert failures and mishandling of exception conditions. All right, so that's OWASP Top 10. I just wanted to mention that and put that out there so that we know what we are going to be seeing more often later. So another thing I want you to look at is understanding the attack surface. So what is an attack surface? Before you even get into what this whole thing is about, every single point of your system that potentially, we don't know yet, we haven't tried it yet, but potentially could be exploited by an attacker is an attack surface. We don't know whether that attack surface is already protected, but any single point that can be exploited is an attack surface. I think about it this way. The moment I get into your system, anything I can see the first time around seems like a circle to me. This is how I just visualize it in my own head. It seems like a circle. Okay, I can access the login page. I can access the registering my own user sign up page. These are things that I already noticed. Okay, this is the first frame of things that I can do. Fine. I register into your system. I log into your system. Now I'm in your system. What kind of things can I attack? What kind of things can I access? Those type of things I can access now broaden my attack surface. Because before, all I thought I could do was in the register and in the login. And now I'm able to do things outside of that, inside of the system. But okay, yes, I'm now in the system. I can't access the admin page, right? I can't access hidden documents. But if I'm able to find certain exploits that could give me access to the admin page, to hidden files, then I've broadened my attack surface. And the type of things you can find in your attack surface could include these. You can find URLs or query parameters. A lot of query parameters, you find it in your search bar, right? You go to youtube.com. youtube.com says, youtube.com/v equals to number, letter, right? That's because they've protected it very well. But you find a lot of systems where they don't have those type of things encrypted, and it's just a number. A number that if I change number 5 to number 6, I'm in another user's information. That's vulnerable. Do you understand? So you find, more surfaces to be able to attack with query parameters. You see ID, Q for query, page for what page am I on, sort for what type of information am I seeing. You also find attack surfaces available in headers and cookies. Headers and cookies look more into that GET request and POST request, HTTP request and response, HTTP information that I spoke about earlier. You find sessions, you find tokens, JSON web tokens, you find all these type of things, custom headers that you can tweak and change to what you feel is right for the attack you're trying to carry out, forms and request bodies, right? There's login information over these forms, there's searching information, comments you can typically lead. You can, in the last class that we had, I told you guys rule of thumb. You are trying to attack a virtual machine, you are on their web page, you click right click, you go search the page information, because sometimes attackers might just leave, developers might leave comments in their system just for them to know, because that's typically what comments are. The system isn't recognizing it as any informative thing that it should run, but they leave it there so that they can understand more things about their system. And as they leave it there, they might leave it in the system that we are visibly able to see. Somebody is like, oh, comments, password for this device is 1234. You see the password, you go and type 1234, you're in the system, you understand? Those type of things do occur more often than you might think. But yes, apart from these three that I've already mentioned, there's also file uploads. With the file uploads, again, we're talking about attack surface. With the file uploads, you might be able to upload files that should typically not allow you to upload them, right? In the last class, we spoke on, remember we went to the footer page, footer.php, under the web, under the WordPress file, so WordPress web page, and once we got there, we took out the information they had there and uploaded a new information in the file that was to be run. And from there, we were able to get a reverse shell. So obviously, file uploads is another thing that could broaden your attack surface. You get file names from file uploads, you get content, you get metadata, very important set of data that is very useful to the system. And you're able to connive your way into that system and just become as malicious as you ought to be. You have APIs and JSON or XMLs. JSON or XMLs are a type of file that typically the system would, accept, and you're changing those information into something else. And yes, from these informations, you can get endpoints, object IDs, payloads. You can be able to put these in. You can be able to take them out, change them, manipulate it. And also here we can find hidden or client-side fields. From here, you can find prices in banks, roles that someone can have. Your role is not admin. Is admin is equals to false. You change the false to true. Boom, you're an admin now. You understand? This type of thing. And then even debug flags. We'll come back to that very shortly. Sorry, I think I moved too far. This is where we were. So, how do we approach a web application test? We've spoken about this previously, but I want us to really look at it more deeply, right? Because there's a lot that goes into it, and it's left to you to know what you're going to do depending on the system you are trying to attack and the type of system you are authorizedly allowed to attack. So obviously, we always start with reconnaissance. I mentioned that in the last class. We do not do anything without knowing what exactly we're trying to do. Start with reconnaissance, you get the scope, the ownership, the information you need to be able to begin what you're about to begin. You map the applications, you find out the routes, you find out what type of things are you allowed to do. You also identify the input spaces. Anywhere, where can I put in information? Am I only able to read information, or can I also impute information here? Can I give you something there? They say, okay, log in. I'm logging in. As I'm typing in something, I'm imputing information. Can I do something malicious there? That's what this talks about. Then we find out auth and authorization. These are two different things, but they're very similar, right? Logins, login sessions, access controls. They are all working hand in hand to be able to show us that, yes, this is a new set of things that we can do when it comes to the pen testing approach in web application testing. Test input handling, the type of inputs you give the system. What type of information does it give? What type of information does it give you back? You try a normal one, it gives you normal information. You try a malicious one, it gives you a different information. Okay, right? Typically what I do personally is I try normal information, something that I know it would collect. It collects it, boom, we're in business together. I try something that is wrong. It's not malicious, but it's wrong. Maybe I put in a wrong password, or I put in something that I know it's not going to collect. I see what kind of information I get. So I have a yes value, and then I have a no value. Then I do something malicious. Now, if my malicious thing gives me a no value, I know, okay, yes, I did something wrong. Let me try doing a different malicious payload. If I did something malicious and it gave me a yes, then I know that this works for the system, and at that, I have to document it. Moving on, so we start to test the business logic. What are the workflows? What are the abuse cases? At what points would I do something and then the system is like, hey, we don't agree with that, At what points do the systems adhere to the compliance measures that have been set globally and generally for my own system, right? I start to validate my findings next. I reproduce and confirm the evidences that exist in my systems based on what I have been able to do so far. What kind of things can I confirm that, yes, this is a problem? This is something that we should talk to the board of directors, talk to developers, talk to the CISO, right? Talk to all these type of, CISO is Chief Information Security Officer. Talk to all these type of people and be like, look, broaden your defenses, make it more strong, because it's not working enough to be able to defend against this particular thing. Then we also have access. Oh Lord, I almost said access. Assess the impact. So now, initially we spoke about how penetration testing doesn't only help for red teaming, but it also helps the blue teamers because they are under defense. And with their defensive work, they're very interested in how can I, make the system stronger. But with us doing a penetration test on a system, on a web application, on whatever we're doing it on, how best can I help the defenders, right? I did this thing. I know that if I continue going down this path, the whole system will shut down, right? I tell the defenders, look, the next thing I'm about to do, you're going to get a level 15. In fact, level 7, even though level 17 doesn't exist, but you're going to get a level 15, log events that's happened because your whole system is being shut down, right? Your whole system is at such a critical state. I will talk about SOC and defensive work by next week, but until then, these are the informations that we would see. And also the blast radius. How far in that attack space, in that attack surface that we spoke about a bit earlier, how far in that can we declare that, yes, an attack from here will blow up that whole mine? It will look at another space entirely that we should not be able to. How far would this attack, this small attack that I did, be able to impact my whole system? Then we also have that you document and report. It is very, very, very important to document and report your findings. And it's still something we're going to look into today. In as much as it's not something, I don't want it to hinder our findings of portions of the system, but I want to show you a very simple, it's not entirely professional, but it's very good to keep track of these type of things, at least on your own this way, where you are able to find a vulnerability, take a screenshot, keep it in a document, and so on and so forth. So let's move on, right? Now, I was talking about some vulnerabilities that we would be looking at, and the first of them that I want to speak on is SQLi injection. SQL in the first place. SQLi injection is secure query language injection. That's SQLi. But SQL is its own thing. It's a secure query language. It's where we keep documents. It's where we keep bless me. It's where we keep information that occurs in your system that needs to be saved in a database. It's a database management system, DBMS, right? And with SQL, you have your login data. A lot of companies use SQL. You have your login data, you have your passwords, you have your I don't know, account information, when you logged in last, when you first entered your system. You know, there's a lot of information that's being stored in a database. And a lot of companies use SQL. But the problem is not a lot of them are able to properly validate and verify that the information coming in and information going out is being served out or in a secured and, you know, properly slated manner. So these attacks imputes information into your database query logic. So this is typically how it comes out, not to waste any much time. You have, this is unsafe anyways. This is what it comes out as this white one here. You have into brackets, select all. This asterisk over here means all. It's a language, right? Structured queried language. It understands this information. And if you go deeper to go search out, okay, how does SQL work? It's a whole thing where you learn a lot of new commands that you probably haven't seen before, but it's not complex at all. It's just something that I would say, okay, if you wanted to go a bit further, you should go check them out, especially if you're going into application hacking, web hacking, these type of things, right? So select all users where more information. This one in red is the unsafe one. Do you understand? But it typically comes out like select all from users where the ID is equals to whatever the user says. Equals to whatever the user says. And if the user now puts this information here in green over there, and then he puts something like this, and then he puts something like this, sorry, put something like this. Before we saw select is in capitals. You can keep it in small sometimes, but it's typically you know, proper to keep it in capitals because that's how the system typically says it. Select all from users where all these ones in capitals are SQL injection, you know, acceptable commands, where, and typically they will say username is equals to this is the information you will get. And over here now, they might even take this out and say, that's how it came out now, right? No, let's just do it like this. Yes, is equals to username or query the database. I'm not fully versed in SQL because it's not my thing, but just assume this means the user's input, right? So whatever input you came in with, maybe you went and said, okay, well, you're typing into the login field. Your login field, your name is David. So instead of this, what they are going to do is replace this with David, right? So, okay, fine. They check all of the users, and yes, there's a user in these users called David. So David says, beautiful, do you find me here? He says, yes, we find you here. So we start to print out all the information that belongs to David. However, if I now said, well, I know very well that this system doesn't have, like, you know, validations for these type of things. They don't have the type of things that will stop me as an attacker. What do I do there? I start to draw up an SQL injection. I might even start like this. Here we have double quotes over here, and these double quotes have to be closed. So what I will do first is to close this. I close it out as this one would have typically done, and then I'll say or, 1 is equals to 1. Now put a hashtag over here. That's what we have here on the board. Even though we don't have an exit value here, but ignore that for a bit. I'll change it before the slides are being sent. But yes, you close out the first one. You said or, whatever was even here before, whatever it is, or 1 is equals to 1. And let me ask the audience, is 1 not equals to 1? 1 is equals to 1 now. Right? 1 is the same thing as 1. Is 1 equals to 2? No, 1 is not equals to 2. Right? But 1 is equals to 1. They are the same thing. Right? Is true not equals to true? True is not equals to false. 1 is equals to 1. And note, I put or over here. What does or mean? It means either this one or this one. At least if 1 is true, give me the information. Right? Beautiful. So as I've closed out this first guy, and then I now said or true, because this is a true statement. So I'm just going to put this like this. True. Right? Or true. Hashtag. Now what's this hashtag? This hashtag gets rid of this guy. Remember, we've already closed it in the first place. I can even, if I wanted to just be doing share or just whatever, I just want to make the system comfortable, I'll not even add the David here. Assuming David is not even a valid user in the system, it doesn't matter. As far as there's one true value here, and the system accepts this information, guess what? I'm not only going to get information about David. If the system is that vulnerable, I might be able to get all the information about every single user in that system, which should not be the case. But in as much as you would think, oh, these type of things don't occur, oh no, Olivia, a lot of systems are they are more secure than there's a lot that are not. Do you understand? There's a lot of systems that if you try this out, you will find what you're not supposed to find. You understand? Stuff that are not accessible and or available to you as a non-user or even a user. Why should I be able to see every single user in user? Do you understand? But we'll see that in more practical, ways when we get to the practice. So obviously, SQL injections, they come out as user inputs, right? You put in information, then your information gets into the application. The application takes that information, sends it as an SQL query because that's what you even give it in the first place as a malicious user. That SQL query gives it to the database. The database takes it and is like, yum, this is so delicious, right? Okay, I'm full. It gives you back the information that you required from it. That information is being sent back as an SQL query. The SQL query sends it to the application sends it back to the user as a response. And when it sends it back to the user, depending on what you ask for it, you might be able to get some crazy things. It's not all systems that you might find these type of things available for, but there are systems that are very vulnerable. So let's move on. We've already spoken about the testing methodology, right? A lot of the times you submit a meta character, such as the quotation marks over here, or the hashtags that we had seen earlier. These are meta characters that typically systems shouldn't be able to allow because we are much grown up in the whole technological space. But yes, and the thing is, you have to confirm. Don't assume. Check to see whether these are actually things that are working. The evidence the query logic changed, not just that an error appeared. Go and find out from different systems. And I'll show you a new system. I'm so excited to get into the next thing we're going to go into with the, with the practical, because no matter how many times I do it, even me that I've done this quite a few times, it always excites me, this part of it. But anyways, there's another injection I want to show you into, which is cross-site scripting. With cross-site scripting, I don't know if you've ever been into maybe you're watching anime. I watch a lot of anime, guys, right? You're watching anime, and as you're watching the anime, okay, beautiful. You click one button, they send you to a new tab, ads, right? You close the ad, you come back, they send you to a new tab. What's this? You're playing a game, or maybe you're not playing a game, you're trying to download it, you're trying to download a file, trying to download a game, something like that. And then you click a button, it pastes you one ad, one kind 1x bets, or something like that. I don't know if it happens for any of you on the stream. But these type of things happen, and you would not know that maybe the system itself is vulnerable. That is why these type of things happen. And it happens through cross-site scripting. What is cross-site scripting? Cross-site scripting, I'm so sorry. Cross-site scripting, or XSS, is involved with using JavaScript. The JavaScript that runs on the system, right? You are exploiting the fact that they have not validated for these informations that are coming in. You're exploiting it, and then you are running this information on the victim's browser. There are three types of, is it here? No, it's here. There are three types of cross-site scripting that exist. There's reflected, there's stored, and then there's DOM. Each of which come up with a different thing. I really don't want to spend too much time on this because we're going to see more practical veins of this whole thing. But for example, reflected, the one that keeps repeating, right? But it only keeps repeating for the session you are in. You close your whole browser out, you open it back up, you go back to the same site, it might not show up again, right? With stored, it's being stored on your system. Oh, sorry, not on your system, rather, on their system. Do you understand? They can't take it out because they are not the ones that put it in. There's no space to take it out. You, as an attacker, drop this thing on their system. And it's one of the most annoying exploits out there, I can't even lie, because I'm trying to exploit the system. I find out that cross-site scripting is one of the things that are available for them. And then I'm typing in the command, I paste it, it runs, and then as it's running now, I reload the page and then it keeps popping up, you understand? Because these are the type of things that happen with ads. There, and about. And we can see other exploits coming up. This is the methodology that exists. Again, I'll send these slides to the group chat, to the Google Classroom, but I want us to run really quickly. We're a little behind time. There's also command injection. Command injection is you are directly interacting with the server. The server that is hosting it, that virtual machine that is hosting the whole port 80, port 443 that you're seeing all these web injections on, that thing, you are asking it to enter its system, right? You put a semicolon. I'm not seeing any semicolon on the slides, but yes, okay, look, for example, you put a semicolon, and after the semicolon, even though this is what you're supposed to typically be using, which is the 8888, port 8.8.8.8, I think, yeah, and then you start to tell it, well, I don't care about your system anymore. I have terminated the system session that we were currently looking at, and I want to ask you for something else, right? And then you start to tell it to traverse files and look at other things that exist. There's also file uploads. I mentioned file uploads earlier, where you can drop in files, malicious files, obviously. Well, as a pen tester, you drop in malicious files. Malicious files are doing certain things that the system shouldn't be able to accept, but apparently is able to accept, right? It goes through the upload, it validates it, takes it into storage, and then it starts to process that file. And if that file is bad enough, you don't know the type of information you can be able to get into. There's also path and directory traversal. You are in home file. You move to root file. We did that in the last class. When you're in root file now, you start to do crazy things they are not supposed to do in root file. Why? Because you're now in root file. But how are you able to get from home to root? You are going through directory or path traversal. And there's also IDOR, or broken access control, right? With this now, it's more like the information you typically are supposed to be getting is supposed to be only your information. Assuming you entered into your bank and your ID number is 256, right? As you are 256 now, you now change that number from 256 to 257, and then you're in someone else's account. And then you're able to change your account information. You remove your money and send it to your own account. Is that not bad? Are you not a criminal? Do you get it? But anyways, as a pen tester, it's not bad because that's what they allowed you to do. And this type of things happen between IDOR and broken access control. IDOR is indirect, insecure direct object reference. Yes, insecure direct object reference, and where you're supposed to be is not where you are, because you are able to easily move on to different things. Moving on, right? There's also XXE. XXE is XML and external entity. Is where you are using XML files. XML is very similar to JSON. JSON is another type of file that you can get in your system to point using this file to external entities that this file should typically not be able to use, and then grab the information from there and grab information there and here and there and there and here and here. And then you're getting access that you shouldn't typically be able to from a very innocent looking file, right? Okay, and then there are a lot of other common web vulnerabilities, some of which already have their place in the OWASP top 10, as we mentioned before. Some of them we hadn't mentioned before, but they're still there. We have authentication weakness, where you have a weak login or multi-factor authentication. You have session management, predictable or fixed session, maybe the information that somebody is getting now as your own session management. You've logged in as your user, you have a session token, and then from the session token, you're just able to move on to someone else's session token. That's a problem. CSRF, cross-site reference fraudery, cross-site response fraudery, right? So client side, I said not cross-site. Client side request forgery, and then SSRF, which is server side request forgery. You are doing things malicious on the client side, which is the parts that we are visually seeing, and also the server side, which we typically should not be able to see. We have security misconfigurations. These come from the people setting up your system, and they're not able to do it as properly as they should, and then it's giving you issues, one or the other, in your system. You also have HTTP parameter tampering. People are changing information that your HTTP requests and responses are getting. Sensitive data exposure, secrets in responses. You collected information. As you're collecting the information, it's giving you more information that you required in the first place. You are changing some things, it's giving you even more information. And you have business logic flaw. You have your process or workflow abuse. And all of these things have the way you test for them and then the type of impacts that they have, but you can definitely look into more of them, because these aren't the end of them. There's a lot more available in cybersecurity in general and the whole web exploitation. But I really want to move quickly so we can get into the practical aspects of this. So before we move on, let's check out common testing tools that we will be using. Obviously, we'll be using browser dev tools, which include, the systems and the type of things you see on your systems. You have your inspect, right? If you right-click on your browser, you see inspect there. At the side, you see a lot of JavaScript, HTTP requests. You see a lot of other things. There's a lot in that field that you can do that typically people don't pay too much attention to. So maybe developers might think, okay, they can get away with lots of things. But as a pen tester, you should very much take note of this. You can also use curl. Curl crafts requests by hand. With curl, you are practically using your browser. I'm sorry, 1 second. I'll charge my laptop real quick. So I'm not going to die in a bit. All right. So curl, from your terminal, you are intentionally creating the requests or the responses that you need to see. You also have Nmap. We spoke about Nmap in the last class, where we were able to get the ports that were open in our virtual machine. We were able to get the versions of those ports and what IP addresses they follow under. We have SQL map. These are usually used for SQL information, for the SQL that I'd shown you earlier. And then burp suits. Burp suits is even the one I want you to most focus on because it's one that we'll be able to use, we'll be able to drain the most usage out of. And it's what we're going to use today in our class for the practical session. With burp suits now, there's so much, guys. I'm so excited. So you can intercept information that's coming into the system. You can be able to modify the information, change it before it gets sent out, right? Somebody sends you an OTP. I collect the OTP before you get it, right? Before you get the information, I collected the OTP. I copy the OTP. I give it to somebody else. That person uses your OTP, opens their own account. For some reason, it works. You know that's a vulnerability. You understand? These are the type of things you can find using burp suits. There's also fluffing. We've spoken about fluffing before, where you know, you're going through every single